Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Kyle Hawthorne. This is Rooted Doctrine, and today is Matthew chapter 20. This is the last chapter before Jesus and his disciples are going to actually enter into Jerusalem. And it's probably important that we look at this section right before Matthew 20 to understand, because this is a little bit of an unfortunate chapter break here. In the last part of chapter 19, Peter asks Jesus, essentially after hearing about this rich young ruler and how it's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. He asks essentially, like, what is there that's going to be left for us? I mean, if it's this difficult for a rich man, someone that's received blessings from God, and how hard is it going to be for us? We've left everything for you. And so Jesus goes into this promise of them sitting on the 12 thrones and judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And then he begins chapter 20 by saying, "For the kingdom of heaven is like this." And so it's just important to understand that context. Sometimes chapter breaks fall kind of in the middle of two connected passages. So let's take a look at this parable of a vineyard that is built by this landowner. I'm going to go ahead and read verse 1 all the way through 16, this entire parable here. Jesus says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. When he had agreed with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And he went about the third hour and saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And to those he said, 'You also go into the vineyard, and whatever is right I will give you.' And so they went. Again he went out about the 6th and the 9th hour, and did the same thing. And about the 11th hour, he went out and found others standing around. And he said to them, 'Why have you been standing here idle all day long?' They said to him, 'Because no one hired us.' He said to them, 'You go into the vineyard too.' When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, 'Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last group to the first.' When those hired about the 11th hour came, each one received a denarius. When those hired first came, they thought that they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they grumbled at the landowner, saying, 'These men have worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden and the scorching heat of the day.' But he answered and said to one of them, 'Friend, am I doing you no wrong? Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go. But I wish to give to this last man the same as to you. Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with what is my own? Or is your eye envious because I am generous? So the last shall be first, and the first last." Okay, so like we mentioned, this is like a continuation of the discussion about what the kingdom of heaven is going to be like. And I kind of sympathize with the disciples here, because it's like Jesus is moving back and forth between explaining, I believe, the millennial kingdom, the literal 1,000-year reign of Christ at the end of the age, that he spoke about when he answered Peter's question and told them, you guys are going to play a huge role in this kingdom. You are going to be sitting on 12 thrones. You're going to be judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And then he transitions into parables about what the kingdom is going to be like while they are still on this earth, prior to that end of the age. And it's going to be an upside down kingdom, about the first being last. It's going to be full of servitude. It's going to be full of things that don't seem quite right, but God's going to make them right. And there's a lot of trust and dependence on him. and navigating things that just are sort of not reflective of maybe the world's definition of fairness, the world's definition of what is good. And so this is a reflection, I think, of that kingdom principle that's here and now. I look at the kingdom like it's been inaugurated by Jesus, but it's not been fully consummated. That because Jesus came and he died and conquered sin and death, that the kingdom has been brought to us, but has not reached its full fulfillment, like we will see when Jesus returns and sits on his throne and begins to literally reign and rule on this earth for 1,000 years. Satan will be bound. A lot of kind of theologians will use a term like Jesus now is king de jure, but during the 1,000-year reign of Christ, he will be king de facto. And what that means is essentially like he is the rightful king right now, but he is not the reigning king right now. He is not literally on earth reigning from his throne, making decisions and exercising his authority. He is what I believe his primary role now is as our high priest. He's interceding for us. He's at the right hand of the Father on the Father's throne, and he is our great intercessor. He's praying for us. He's making petitions and pleas on our behalf. He's watching our ministry, and he's caring for us. There will be a time, it's really clear in Revelation, where he will come back. He will come back as a conquering king, and he will be coming riding on a horse, not riding on a donkey like we're going to see in the next chapter, but riding on a horse. And he's going to look very different. The descriptions in Revelation are very different. And he is going to come for judgment. He's going to come for literal ruling and reigning. And it's going to be a very different kingdom experience than what we're experiencing right now on this earth, as we eagerly wait with the hope and the anticipation of that return, that triumphant return of Jesus. So that being said, let's look at these 5 groups. So there's 5 groups of workers. There's the early morning workers. They worked all day and they were promised a denarius. They received a denarius. Very important for us to understand that Jesus, he didn't act unjustly to anybody here. He gave everybody at least what they deserved. Some people received more than they deserved. And then you have the midday workers, 9 a.m. They were promised whatever is right, which is interesting. The midday workers started around noon. These mid-afternoon workers, 2 p.m. And then the end of the day workers, 5 p.m. They only worked, there was only 1 hour of work left. And so when evening came, it's interesting that he chose to pay the last group first. I found that interesting. I think what it does is it instinctively places anybody who reads this story in that first group, and we kind of sympathize with them. And I think it's intended, the way that Jesus tells this story, for us to place ourselves in that group. But really, we could place ourselves in any group if we wanted to, imagine ourselves being the ones that only worked for 1 hour. But it doesn't seem like very many people do that when they read this parable. And so he pays this last group first, setting sort of the expectation of this first group that, oh, maybe we're going to receive more than a denarius. If he paid this group that only worked an hour a denarius, perhaps he's going to pay us more. I think they expected that. And of course, when the time for their payment came, they did not receive more than a denarius. They only received a denarius. And I think the main lesson here in this parable is that some people are going to experience God's grace, but nobody is going to experience injustice. And even the people that experience justice will feel like it's injustice, but it's not. They agreed to work for a denarius, and that's what they received. So every other group thereafter received grace, They received more than they deserved. Okay, let's pick up in verse 17 here. Jesus tells his disciples again what's going to happen in Jerusalem. This is going to be the third time he foretells his death. It says, as Jesus was about to go up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside by themselves, and on the way he said to them, behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death, and will hand him over to the Gentiles to mock and scourge and crucify him. And on the third day he will be raised up. This is the third time he has brought the disciples aside, at least the third time that Matthew records it, and told them that he's going to die. The first was maybe not the most obvious. It was when he told the Pharisees, with the disciples listening, that there won't be a sign for them other than the sign of Jonah, where the Son of Man will, just as Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days, 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the earth 3 days and 3 nights. And then the second is right before Peter rebukes him in chapter 16, that he tells them that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the chief priests and the elders and be killed. And so it's interesting that this statement is immediately followed by this request for preferential treatment. And it just shows just how the disciples really didn't have their minds set on this servant attitude, about this idea of suffering and enduring and even dying. And I think it really ties in well with this kingdom now and also kingdom then. It's like, not all things are going to be delivered to these disciples like they desire. And so let's read about this. I think it'll make more sense. I probably should have waited until we read this to talk about it. Starting verse 20, Matthew writes, then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to Jesus with her sons, bowing down and making a request of him. And he said to her, what do you wish? She said to him, command that in your kingdom these 2 sons of mine may sit, one at your right and one at your left. But Jesus answered, you do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink? They said to him, we are able. He said to them, my cup you shall drink, but to sit on my right and my left, this is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father. And hearing this, the 10 became indignant with the 2 brothers. But Jesus called them to himself and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. It is not this way among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. Okay, so you get this idea that they don't understand that what's ahead of them is not this glorious throne and judgment of the 12 tribes of Israel. I mean, that is ahead of them, but it's far ahead. What's immediately ahead of them is this idea that they will participate in the suffering of Jesus. I mean, Jesus makes this really clear to them many times that, if they treated me this poorly, how do you think they're going to treat you? And to be prepared for a life that includes suffering. But he also gives us great hope and says, listen, it'll all be worth it. I mean, all of this is for the glory of God, and it's also for your benefit. And so you get the sense that they're really wanting to just move straight to that consummation of the kingdom, and that's what they're anticipating. They're thinking of like earthly type kingdoms where you have people who have ranks and positions and literal authority. And this mother of the James and John, she cares about her sons, and she wants her sons to have some of those high-ranking positions. And Jesus just tells them straight away, like, you just don't even know what you're asking. You don't even know what you're talking about here. What I need you to focus on is on serving. I need you to focus on what you're going to have to endure for decades. And, there will be a time that comes that you will sit on thrones and judge the 12 tribes of Israel. But first, if you think about James's life, he was killed by King Agrippa in Acts. You think about John's life, being exiled on the island of Patmos, writing Revelation. A lot of people think he was in prison there. And the disciple, Peter was crucified upside down. The disciples lived a life full of persecution, full of suffering. They participated in many ways of the suffering that Christ participated in, not obviously to the same extent. But Jesus, he flat out told them, he said, my cup you shall drink. You will participate in this. Okay, let's finish this chapter here. Verse 29, as they were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed him. And two blind men sitting on the road, hearing that Jesus was passing by, cried out, Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David. The crowd sternly told them to be quiet, but they cried out all the more, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us. And Jesus stopped and called them and said, what do you want me to do for you? They said to him, Lord, we want our eyes to be opened. Moved with compassion, Jesus touched their eyes, and immediately they regained their sight and followed him. Yeah, what a beautiful story right before this triumphal entry into Jerusalem. And what a good lesson that these men weren't worried about the crowd. They weren't worried about public pressure. They weren't worried about what men think of them. They were persistent. They recognized the Lord that was in front of them, the Messiah, called him the Son of David, asked for mercy, and continued to persist in their request to him, just as we're asked to do. And Jesus, moved with compassion, touched their eyes, and immediately they regained their sight and followed him. It's just a beautiful, beautiful picture of the heart of Jesus and the availability of his compassion towards us, and his desire for us to come to him and be persistent, and he is just eager to give us sight. Thanks for reading through chapter 20 with me. Thank you for moving through the book of Matthew with me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. It's certainly been good for me. If you found these videos helpful, please like them. I am curious. I haven't had any comments so far, but comment if you're one of those that is listening along, and let me know what you think. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.